have occasion. Right now, I'm an entrepreneur, and for the last 20 years or so, I have been an entrepreneur. We've done high-end R&D projects for the government, and I've had a past as a entrepreneur in the network security arena, and also had I'm currently going through a stint with real-time analytics with applications in healthcare, pharmacovigilance, and so forth. So I'll talk about those things as questions come up so you can relate to the experience that I have. So my contact information is here, swami@calculogic.com. I'm hoping that this session is not the end of your engagement with me, but the start of the engagement. So if you have any deep questions or want to interact further, you can certainly reach out to me. My company is called CalQLogic. A group of us are trying to get real-time analytics into the market through a product called Triggerware, which if we have occasion, we'll talk about. But without that, I just want to go into a couple of details about the conversation we're going to have. It is called Ask Me Anything. Obviously, that's not a very modest title. And even though it is called Ask Me Anything, you really can't ask me anything because I don't know everything. But so, it's very rare for a PhD person, particularly of the male persuasion, to say, I don't know. But you might hear me say that from time to time because, you may take me in some directions where I don't have knowledge. My knowledge is more deep on the machine learning and AI side than it is in the healthcare side. The healthcare side, I know as a technologist who's deploying solutions in that area. So, we will discover each other's limitations. And so if you hear me from time to time say, I don't know, that's fine. Please, I will definitely give you hints of where you can find the information, or maybe we go look at it together later on. If the questions go very deep into technical detail, then I will certainly ask for it to take the question offline. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just want to give everybody a chance to ask questions, as many people as possible. And again, treat this as the start of the conversation. So if I say take it offline, by all means, I'm inviting you to get in touch with me and to be able to pursue that line of conversation after this particular morning is over for you. If you contact me, I will send you the slide deck. The slide deck has a few more insights than I'll be able to share during the presentation today. I want the presentation to be mainly about questions and answers that you set for me. I have no idea how it's going to go, how many questions I'll be able to answer, etc. But the bottom line is, if you want to get some of the insights I have about AI, about applications of AI, etc., by all means, contact me and you can see the rest of the deck there. One of the things I wanted to stress is that, there's nothing I'm going to tell you that hasn't been learned through the school of hard knocks. I'm a technologist who transitioned into entrepreneurship, and I had to learn everything the hard way. I wasn't a born businessman or anything like that. I was a very typical IIT student from the old days, where we were mostly studious, mostly book learning, and not risk prone. That is, we wouldn't like to take risk. These days, of course, India is a very different country, and you young folks are much more inclined to take risks and ready to take risks, which I think is good. So anything I tell you here is going to be lessons I learned the hard way, and I'm still learning because I'm still an entrepreneur. And so when I talk to you, my view is from the trenches. I mean, I'm in the trenches like you, a different company, but I'm walking the same journey, maybe a few miles ahead of you in some ways. So the comments are going to come as a fellow entrepreneur who has a fair amount of technical knowledge and is trying to get the information out into the hands of good entrepreneurs like you. I want to learn more about what you folks are doing, what applications you have, and offer as much assistance as I can. And as I said, you are welcome to continue interacting with me. So please reach out and stay in touch with me after this conversation. So with that, let me just stop and let us roll forward with the questions. If I think any of the slides is relevant to an answer, I'll pull up that slide. Otherwise, I will talk off the cuff. And if I say, let's go offline, then please understand why I'm doing it is in the interest of not boring the audience with some very detailed discussion about one specific issue, or to spread the bandwidth as much as possible so that we cover as many questions. So with that, I'm ready for your questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. We'll move forward with the question from the audience. Anybody, any questions to start off with? Anybody want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, one
Very,
small suggestion. Please give me your name at the top of the question so that I can address you properly. Thank you.
very good morning, sir.
Very good morning to you.
Sir, this is Saranya from Armor Healthcare Innovation, sir.
Yes.
I have a question, sir. Meaning, in what way we can get into target-specific data sets to train the model for target-specific healthcare applications? For
Give
example,
me
say
a.
COVID. Yeah, sir.
Okay, so give me a little more about what these data sets are and what you mean by target data sets.
Yeah, target data sets for screening COVID-19, sir, based on the chest X-ray images.
Yeah, I think what attempts have you made to get these data sets from, let's say, U.S. authorities or from public sources? What have you tried and what has not worked?
Actually, I'm new to this field, sir, because my research was based on real-time interactions. So all the my research was experimentation-based platform. So I want to get into this platform. So for that, I'm asking, and from my colleagues and from my scholars friends, they said like we can trust on Kogel, sir. Am I right, sir?
I think so. I think, yeah, as with anything, getting the data is always the first job of any, researcher or anybody building an application of some kind, software of some kind, any solution of some kind. Yes, I mean, getting the proper data set is the right way to go. So I think you're tackling the right question and asking the right question.
Yes.
I'm a little out of my depth in terms of, because I'm not a healthcare expert. I couldn't tell you exactly where to find COVID specific data sets.
Okay.
However, early in the COVID cycle, maybe a year ago, we explored the idea of building a portal that combines all the data that's available for COVID. It may not have been specific to the parameters that you need, but I can probably dig up. I mean, if you contact me offline, I will share with you some of the data sources that we had explored at that time. There were about half a dozen or so that are, open data sources. And then, of course, there's the academic institutions and so forth that you can also explore. So I'll share with you some of those details if you contact me
Sure.
offline. But off the top of my head, the CDC, that is the Center for Disease Control in the United States, comes to mind. But how open they are with the data, etc., is a good question. Now, are you working as an academic or as an entrepreneur?
Currently, I'm an academician, sir. I'm assistant professor in Rajalakshmi Engineering College. And
Okay.
so I have subjected a proposal for, HTIC to HTIC, and I got involved myself as a co-founder for Armor Healthcare Innovations. So I just want to get into this AI and deep learning platform to perform certain projects to check its efficacy through simulation before we get into experimentation, sir. So I started learning in this way as well. So that's why I just want to know from where we can just stick on to the reliability in taking the data sets. And also I need to know how many data sets has to be inserted to train a model so that better efficacy can be expected.
Yeah,
So that is, yes,
yeah.
sir.
I can answer the second question that you posed a little more easily.
Yes, sir.
The amount of data that you need varies a little bit based upon, how difficult the diagnosis may be, or what you're trying to extract out of it. If you're going to use deep learning, you will need a lot of data generally.
Yes.
A lot more data than if you have, let's say, a supervised learning algorithm or so forth. The deep learning algorithm, the nice thing is that you don't, you can tackle the data set without doing a lot of feature analysis, because you don't know the features ahead of time. Deep learning can come into play in that kind of a situation. But the trade-off is that while you don't know the feature set, and the deep learning algorithm can be used, you'll need a lot more data. So you bring up a valid point. What volume of data and what quality of data? That's the first question you should ask in every deep learning project. So I will
Yes.
help you offline. Once you get in touch with me,
Yes.
I'll share with you what I know. And I think I can help you reach a couple of sources, and your academic affiliation will help.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And sure, I will contact you offline, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanya. Thank you, sir. We'll move to the next
Thank you,
question
ma'am.
on the chat. How AI and ML are benefiting the healthcare industry in the recent times?
Okay, let me see if I can answer that question by going to a specific slide in my presentation. That's a very good question. I think it's the easiest thing to do is to just let me just go to that particular question and you'll see. Just bear with me as I bring it up because it has a nice picture there, which I think is worth. Okay, here we go. So, what are some of the ways in which applications are being built using AI? Now, first of all, understand what AI is. AI is simply the application of what you might think of as advanced algorithms that look like they are essentially doing things that human beings normally do. These days, with the ability we have of having great computers and availability of data and lots of open source and publicly available huge libraries, there is a nice convergence that's taking place. And so we find many, many technologies that play. And so if you look at this slide, it gives you pretty much all the things that you can think of at the very rudimentary level using natural language processing in applications like chatbots around healthcare. uh, AI chatbots is not a completely new technology, but you can combine it with healthcare domain knowledge so that the chat guidance is a lot more pointed and useful to the person who's there. Wearables and devices. This is coming through the explosion of Internet of Things. They now call it not only Internet of Things, which is basically sensors and so forth, providing data in real time. But these days, everybody has wearables, and all those devices together give you a lot of information about what's happening with the body. Another kind of wearables that I'm aware of is prosthetics, intelligent prosthetics that are able to do robotic pickup of objects and things like that, so that people who are injured in battle or crippled in some fashion, they can find new ways of being useful. There is a lot of work in genetics. The human genome has been broken and the code has been broken, and the information is available. So in things like genetic research here and personal genetics here, you'll see genome stuff playing a big role. There's also a fair amount of work in remote telemedicine, etc. A lot of stuff in drug discovery and monitoring of drugs post market. I mean, we have some experience in that field. Once a drug goes into the market, it takes a long time before you see problems with the drug. These days, people can monitor social media, news, and other items to see whether people are reporting problems. If somebody sees a problem today, they're much more likely to complain about it in Facebook or some other social media than before they even go to the doctor. So by watching those signals, we can see some problem with the drug long before. Vast amount of work in machine learning and data analytics. Medical imaging, things like deducing whether there is a certain tumor and things like that from MRIs and other signal, helping doctors deal with medical records. In the healthcare ecosystem, you have clinicians, doctors, you have researchers, pharma, you have patients, and you have the whole ecosystem with insurance and operations and so forth. So anywhere in that ecosystem, if you can help, those are some of the most kind of a target rich for benefits that you can try to build applications and software for. So I hope I've covered a good representation of this. This slide and the next slide give you that information. And if you reach out to me, I'll send you the slides and the source document, and you can look it up and get very good information about what's the current state.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move on to the next question. We have questions lined up in the chat box. So I'll just read it for you. So the next question.
Please read the questions. I can't manage the full
Yes.
environment on my own. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll read out the questions for you. So the next question from Remcos Technologies. What are the benefits of using AI or ML in diagnosis of MRI or CT imaging, and how it is beneficial to radiologists in terms of faster diagnosis or accuracy? How do you see the application of AI and ML in robotic surgery? So there's two questions.
Yeah, let's just keep them one by one. Ask me the first one.
The first question, the benefits of using AI ML in diagnosis of MRI or CT imaging.
Yeah, this is an area where there's been tremendous progress. Actually, this is essentially medical imaging and so forth. The main algorithms that are used there are deep learning algorithms, and the deep learning algorithms are outperforming human radiologists. That is to say, because the images are sometimes 3D, and the images can be very confusing even for trained technicians. Sometimes they'll miss. They can miss a tumor or something. They are less likely to have false positives, but they have false negatives. That is, there are cases of tumors, etc., which they may miss in the MRI. Whereas a well-trained, deep learning algorithm actually does better, and then the human being can go back and verify that the prediction of the algorithm is actually caught something that they did not see in the original MRI. So these days, people are using the AI aided imaging to help with manual imaging as well. And so there is a lot of scope for that. I mean, I think the way I would say it, right, I don't think that the automatically doing these things is going to completely replace the human being, because the human being is ultimately needed to sign off on the decision, etc. The way I would say it, and this is true for whether it's radiologists or medical professionals, doctors, clinicians, etc., it's not so much that AI is going to replace any profession, but the person or professional who does not use AI will be behind the person who does use AI. So AI becomes another decision enhancement tool that a well-trained professional will use. We can't imagine some doctor not being able to read an X-ray. In a few years, it'll be some doctor who doesn't know how to work with AI. That doesn't mean the doctor goes away. We will always need doctors because human intuition is another dimension entirely. And there's a variety of limitations to just using technology blindly in every situation. So I think human beings have to take legal responsibility, financial responsibility, etc. You cannot say the algorithm made me do it. So bottom line, your human being will be part of the loop, but human beings must be aided by these types of algorithms. Is there a second part to the question?
The second part, how do you see the application of AI ML in robotic surgery?
Yeah, I think it's crucial. I mean, one of the things you'll see that many surgeries, that these days there are very complex surgeries that people do, and the recovery time has greatly improved because of robotic surgery. What happens here is, again, it is a robot aiding the human being. So I look at this as a spectrum, not necessarily the robot doing everything, but the small, minute sensors that are able to give the doctor or the surgeon, very, very accurate information about where the probe is going, which part of the tumor they need to cut. Whatever the procedure is, they're able to see inside the body at a level that they never were before. As a result, surgery is much more precise. We think of surgery as being very precise, but in point of fact, it's really, cutting a lot of tissue. I mean, going back to the old days, things have really changed. So the recovery time for a certain procedure from 20 years ago to now is night and day. People can walk out of the hospital now because of robotic surgery or robotic aided surgeons who are able to use or team up with it's like a synergy where the two of them combine. The robot, it gives very precise information about where different tissues are, and the surgeon who's trained to use it can be very successful in dealing just with the problem and giving the patient much more easy way to recover.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move on to the next question. Next question from Aaron Shaw. His question: what would be the best machine learning practicum to design a recommender system based on text recognition? Considering that the data set is labeled and we are trying to sort queries to direct users to commonly ask questions automatically. So,
I didn't understand the second part. They're trying to, if the person is available, have them speak up and clarify the second part of the question.
Yes.
Mr. Aaron, would you?
Hi, sorry. So I was going to ask, so I have a project coming up that I need to sort queries based on the words that are in the queries to direct users to answers based on them. So what would be the best machine learning paradigm to use in that situation, considering that the data set is labeled?
The data set is labeled, but do you know what features you're looking for in the input data? Do you have a good feel for that?
Yes.
Or do you not know? Do you just have
I do.
bodies of data and the proper and labels assigned by a human being without any idea what features they were using?
Okay, so the features I'm not too sure about, but I do know what the data set is. It's about
Okay.
accessibility, and
Yeah.
there are going to be a lot of words in there relating to accessibility issues such as physical disabilities and mental disabilities.
Okay. That sounds like a very high grain type of feature. I was talking about even more, uh, features are basically, things that people have already understood as relevant to making the decision about, the recommendation. And if you have the features well analyzed already, then you can use a simple supervised learning mechanism. Supervised learning will perform really well. It's easy to manage and so forth, not as abstract. But since in your case, it sounds to me like, you don't have a full understanding, and maybe there'll be nobody that has a full understanding of the feature set. A deep learning algorithm, probably something like RNN or CNN will be indicated, something that can use, that can essentially go through the language. Now, is this something where how big is the text that you have to understand?
Right. So the text is going to be a few lines at most, and it's going to be like a couple paragraphs. Sorry, a few lines at the least, and couple paragraphs at the most. And I do have two supervisors who are both in AI and accessibility, so they will be helping me out. I'm a research student. I'm 19 years old in university at the moment.
Okay, wow, 19 years old doing AI. That shows you where we are these days. Amazing. At 19, I didn't know which way was up. Uh, so congratulations on that. What I would say is, start with an approach that looks at one of the neural networks. Your data is on the borderline. I mean, if you have a corpus of text which is pretty big, and you have to remember from the early part of the text what is going on at the latter part of the text, then you have to use something called LSTM, which is a natural language oriented way of doing machine learning. Yeah, otherwise, if the pieces of text are pretty small, you can actually get away with something like RNN or CNN, which will help you do this. So again, contact me offline, and I can understand a little more detail about your situation, and I can make a very specific recommendation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to the next question from Ashish Kumar. This question is, what is the average development time of an AI project from developing prototype to getting regulatory approval? An approximate time period.
Oh my God, that's like asking, how long does it take to have a happy marriage or something? It's a very generic question. Is there an application? The person, if they can speak up, tell me a particular application area they're talking about.
Mr. Ashish, you want to unmute and go ahead?
Yes, sir. Sir, I am the AI in diabetic retinopathy, and we have data set. I want to know what average time will it take to from developing prototype and to getting regulatory approval.
Yeah, I mean, the regulatory. Let's take this step by step. Is your data already ready?
Yes, we have
Uh,
some public data sets.
Okay, so is the data not, when I say ready, having public data sets, are they high quality? Are they already in the right format? Have you analyzed them for proper features, proper mathematical properties, etc.? Have you done that?
No, I only have data sets only.
Okay, so then there is a phase called data preparation, which you have to get into. So every project like this, there is a data preparation phase, which sometimes is actually about 40 to 70% of the project, depending on how complex a data set you're taking on. The data prep is one part of it. Getting the models to run and so forth, right? You have to choose the appropriate model. If you know what you're trying to extract from it, it's a little easier to figure out which models apply the most, and then you can experiment with a few models. Strangely enough, even though we talk about machine learning, AI, etc., the actual running of the models, mathematics always works. So it's like, and these libraries are excellent. Whichever library you choose, millions and millions of dollars have gone into developing these things, and every platform out there, whether it's Google or whether it's Amazon or whether it's IBM, they're all making libraries available, so you can use the library. So the model running won't take you long, so maybe to 15-20% of the effort. And then, of course, to test and validate the application, make sure it's working and so forth, that's another 30% of the project. So you're looking at, end to end, depending on the complexity of the application. I would say it will take you 6 months to a year to get everything working, including data prep. And then the regulation, that I think you should start as soon as you have something viable, you should start applying for it, because that's indeterminate. Are you looking at acceptance in India? Are you looking at which jurisdictions are you trying to get approval in?
Currently, I'm looking for India only.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my data about India is a little shaky. I don't know that much about the Indian market. However, I can put you in touch with an expert who will know. So please get in touch with me and explain the situation, and I'll put you in touch with somebody who can help you on the regulation side. And as for the rest of the life cycle, I can give you some very precise information once you give me a little more detail about what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, thank
Make
you, sir.
sense? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to the next question. Next question from Mr. Sendal Raja. His question is, how AI can be used in drug development and method of using AI in drug development. Since he's working in a small chemical lab, how he can use it in small lab level during this pandemic?
What does the drug do? I mean, what is it targeting? What disease, if I may ask, if you can tell me?
Hello, sir.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Fine, sir. How are you, sir? Laboratory we are using. But at that level, what can we use, sir? Our target is for cancer.
Uh-huh.
So for the cancer.
So is what kind of data are you trying to leverage?
No,
in your discovery, in your drug, you are working in drug discovery. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, what kind of data are you trying to leverage?
Because drug development process takes much time. So by using AI means by what are all the methods can be used to ease the method, to shorten the method of process, those kind of things.
No, I was trying to understand whether what you're trying to do is something like gene therapy, or whether it is just a regular, drug which is intended to, work in through other mechanisms. So I'll show you two of the boxes here, right? You see here personal genetics and genetic research.
Specifically, I am planning to for drug repurposing. Already existing drugs will be markedly available for the purpose. Drug repurposing use. How can we use AI? Any methods?
Yes, I understand now. So what you would like to see is whether there are existing drugs and you want the data associated with them and see if they can be repurposed quickly to satisfy some other clinical symptoms and address those with the least amount of side effects. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah, I think that kind of thing. I've seen some work in it. I have to dig it up, but I've seen some work in this, and I can put you in touch with somebody who would know that. Just contact me after this, and I'll put you in touch with that person so you can have a more detailed discussion with them. This is not my area of expertise, but because I'm in this domain through the technology, I know one or two people that might be able to help. Just get in touch with me, explain the situation, and I'll put you. I'll send you on your way to the expert who might be able to help.
Okay, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question from Indra Priyadarshini. Her question, how medical field or healthcare industry receiving the technology solution offered through AI, ML, and DL? Are they well received? Do they believe the predictions and other solutions?
Excellent question. I think, as I said, I was trying to prepare for this by, looking at different questions related to healthcare. This is a PricewaterhouseCoopers study. This is the kind of thing that you can't settle easily. A lot may vary from, country to country and so forth. And so this data, if I look at the source document, I'll be reminded. But I think this is supposed to be worldwide data. So 54% of the people are willing, 38% are unwilling, 7% don't know what, one way or the other. So this is a rough kind of data about AI-enabled healthcare. Now you have to dig into these numbers a little bit. My personal experience is this. No matter what you're doing, right, all this AI, etc., you have to set expectations very, very clearly. That, like I was telling you before, be very clear about the fact that AI is not the panacea for everything. It's not the only thing that you need. and you can't automatically just take some AI enabled decision and run with it. You always want to make sure that in healthcare, you want to be as aggressive in treating the patient as possible. But if you go too far, there will be outcomes that you have to justify that you, when I say you, the institution that installs your software or your solution will ultimately be responsible for. So it's a they want to be as progressive as possible in adopting technology, but it's a risky field because individual lives, individual health, and sometimes irreversible things happen when people are not careful. So I always say, as I said before, make sure that you are assisting the human beings do their job better. So if there's a doctor, give them the smartest information that they can so that the doctor's own intuition can be used in conjunction with the AI. So if you do that, I think you can increase this number. Nobody questions, like I said, using a computer to get some things done. But so you have to look at that continuum of just increasing further. I think in general, everybody is receptive to AI. It is slightly overhyped. In my generation, AI overpromised and underdelivered. What you have to do in your generation is be very realistic. AI is just a next generation of technology. You will still need human beings to accept legal responsibility, be ethical about the decisions that are made, etc. And so you want a human being there, and make sure that that will help the acceptance of the technology. One other kind of point that I've learned is that because AI, machine learning, these things are very mathematical and sometimes very abstract. No matter what happens, you need someone to explain what is happening. Either the technology itself has to be explainable, and that's tough. So you really typically need somebody who has the training to interpret the mathematics, especially neural networks and things like that are very abstract. So think about why you believe anything, right? If I told you something that you didn't expect, how do you get convinced that what I'm saying is true? I have to kind of reveal a little bit of the reasoning. I have to say, remember this, and from that I came up with this, and then when I applied this algorithm, I got this. So that gives you kind of an idea to convince you this is how it is. The other way you can convince somebody is they just trust you because every time they tried your results, it proved to be true, and you win trust over time. So I think acceptance is already fairly high. At 54%, it's not so bad, but I think it'll increase as people set proper expectations. They integrate AI into the work process as well as possible. AI becomes friendly, explainable, either with a technician or somebody who's trained to understand this stuff. Those are some of the factors that I think will help AI be well received by the user community. And the user community could be doctors, could be researchers, could be patients. Anybody in the ecosystem can benefit, but this applies to all of them. Next question, please. Hello?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So moving on to the next question. Next question from Kiran Karpoor would be interested to know more about AI or ML in 3D bioprinting. How can one think of an use case applicable for India?
I don't know that much about 3D bioprinting. Can you give me an idea what application this is and how it works? Whoever the questioner was, we can explore that for a minute or two.
Sure. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you fine.
Okay. Very good morning. Thanks for your time. So the thermal inkjet printing is the technology which is largely used in 3D bioprinting. We are a company, I'm an entrepreneur. We provide 3D printing services largely. So been associated with IIT Madras since last year. So just wanted to understand that are there avenues of how one can use reinforced machine learning or maybe some of those techniques to make sure that while you develop your hardware, you can also work on being able to build the piece of the software because what I believe is that India doesn't have both. So any applicable use cases can actually pave way for startups.
Yeah, I mean, I can, I'm a slightly out of my depth with the 3D printing domain because I haven't really looked at it that carefully with respect to any of the advanced methods. But I can see reinforcement learning as a potential way in which, I mean, if you think of 3D printing, the appropriate shape or whatever based upon as an optimization problem. Reinforcement learning ultimately is an optimization situation where you can never get, you have a bunch of variables, all of which you're trying to optimize at the same time. And trying to get the best shape, if you will, can be looked at as a reinforcement learning problem. I would very much appreciate you contacting me if you are interested, and we can pursue that further. I need to understand the technical details a little more before I say more, because I don't want to just say something based on my mental understanding of what the problem is at the moment. I would rather spend a few minutes listening to you at some point, and then we can go from there. Does that make
Certain,
sense?
yeah, that makes sense, sir. So certainly. So it is like we are good at building the hardware, but when we sort of look at the software, that is not our core strength. So we would be happy to connect and learn from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move to the next question. Next question from Durga Prasan. This question. I wish to develop a deep learning method to look at pathology slides and predict molecular predictors that cannot be predicted from pathology slides currently. This is usually done today by molecular testing in lab. What would you recommend, supervised or weakly supervised learning method?
Well, I mean, I wish I had the medical knowledge that the Durga, I think Durga Prasad, you said Durga Prasad has, but that would allow me to answer the question fairly easily. The problem is I lack the medical knowledge to know exactly whether this is, it certainly sounds like a supervised learning type of problem. Hello?
Sorry, sir. I just muted. There was some.
Okay.
Somebody was unmuted. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that do the data sets have clearly defined features to the questioner? Do you already know the features that ultimately drive the decision? Are these well understood?
Hello, morning, sir. My name is Durga Prasan. I'm a medical oncologist, actually.
Okay.
This is a specific query. In answer to your query, whether the data set is already available. See, basically, what we're trying to do is we normally have these pathology slides, which will tell you whether the cancer is A or B or C type. Okay. But then we do further molecular testing in the same tissue, which is done with a very different method. It is done in the molecular lab. Now, there are references which suggest that these molecular tests can be predicted by the AI, but which we doctors are not trained to do in our conventional training. So I suspect, my hypothesis is that probably the machine learning is looking at it from a completely different perspective compared to what the doctors are trained to do. So
that's correct. I mean, I think what you're saying is absolutely true. So, I need to understand the specifics of your data set to know whether you said they're using a different method. If we're going to apply machine learning, I need to know, what the feature set would be that you would want to extract from the data set. Is that a well understood data set? I mean, whenever is that well understood? For instance, right, let me give you an idea. I mean, the question has come up in a couple of different contexts. We say that a data set has well understood features if you've already columnized, you have the columns already well defined and the columns are well known. So for instance, right, if I say an insurance company is trying to decide whether to offer life insurance to a person, they are already measuring certain things. They already know the actuarial tables. They know the age of the person, what is the previous health condition of the person, what is the family history, what other stuff is relevant to the actuarial decision. All those features are already measured and already tabulated. That is a perfect case for supervised learning. For something like imaging, where all the features may not be known ahead of time, rather than use a supervised learning, a deep learning method is what I think will be more useful, because you will not be able to, I don't think you have the full feature set fully analyzed, like I said, with the insurance company where they have all the relevant data tabulated already. I don't think you have that level of feature extraction already with the data set. So my guess would be deep learning. But once again, I would advise you to get in touch, and within a short period, we can figure out what is going on with your problem.
Thank you very much, sir. You are right. We do not have the full data set. We don't know what we're looking for. So probably
yes, I mean, so yeah, so in those cases, typically a deep learning algorithm works better. But as I said, I that's my preliminary conclusion. But let's interact on it to confirm.
Thank you, sir. Is there a way we can get in touch with you?
Yes, it's on the title slide. I'll put that up at the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to next question from Venkatramani Balasubramanian. His question, he's Venkat from ClusterX Data. His question, would developers have access to data that is being put together as a part of Indian digital mission?
Say that again, please.
Would developers have access to data that is being put together as a part of Indian digital mission? And do we have access to Indian clinical data sources? Any idea if any hospitals are thinking to provide such data?
I'm less familiar with the India situation, but as I answered to another person, I'm fully capable of. I know one or two experts we have interacted with, in the Indian market, and I can put you in touch with them to explore things further. I'm a little more familiar with the rules here for exchange of data, etc. But in general, right, you're going to find it very hard to get data unless you are coming from a university or you have a research type of background, because this is all data. I mean, we should talk about this a little more. The availability of data is there. I mean, everybody has data now, and data is accumulating very fast, as you know. I saw a startling statistic where, in human history, all the data that we have created up to the 2000 or so, in the 5 years since then, or for 10 years since then, we have accumulated 10 times the data that we have in human history. So that's how fast data is accumulating. The problem is the data here is sensitive data. It could be private data. It's associated with people. Now, maybe for research purposes, it's all anonymized and you don't know who it is. So there are definitely rules for how you can get the data, etc. So once again, please contact me outside this environment, and I'll be able to get it. And as a personal note, I was slightly distracted when you gave me the name Venkatramani Balasubramaniam. Those are two of my favorite uncles, and I was thinking of them, and I completely forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Hope that answers Venkatramani Balasubramanian's
Yeah, please just get in touch with me, Venkatramani.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Moving on to next question from Suresh V. This question, we have developed an app for intrapartum labor monitoring for maternity patients. We are trying to use AI and ML techniques to predict complications and outcomes. Are there any particular models that are available for these? Are there public data sites with this type of information? Any recommendations? The same.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little more familiar with public data sets in that field. I mean, I can give you I don't know specific to this particular set of symptoms and outcomes that you're trying to judge, but I can give you leads on where to explore that. I know about 3 or 4 public portals for data which you might be able to peruse. And then I can put you in touch with people who are a little more familiar with the data sets. Is this for India or for US, or does it matter?
Currently, this is for India, sir. We have developed it for the Indian market, but yeah, if there is interest, we are open to marketing it in the US also.
Because I mean, the jurisdiction might matter, because healthcare outcomes vary quite a bit by country and so forth. So for each market, you may need a different set of things. So please get in touch with me again. I hate to sound the same thing, because the healthcare domain related things, as far as India is concerned, I'm not as familiar as I should be. And we don't spend a lot of time on that set of issues. But as I said, I'll be able to share my network with you, and then you can go from there.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
But I think the problem is an interesting one, and I know at least one other company that's trying to do this. And once you contact me, I'll give you their name as well.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question from Suganti S. again. Can you suggest the course and good universities offering MS in AI or ML for computer science and engineering students?
In India or the United States or online?
So in United States or in India, so both is fine.
Yeah, I think these days, if you're looking for something specific to ML, I mean, what is the ultimate goal? Are you trying to turn into are you trying to do research at the end of this, or are you trying to find a good professional path? What are you trying to do?
Actually, this is the thing I'm asking for my son, who is currently doing there is computer science, and there is he has taken up ELC course in a private university. So so that's why I thought of whether he can take up electives in AI, and he can have his higher studies in AI and machine learning.
No. You cannot go wrong by taking anything AI, machine learning as electives. If you want to actually specialize in it, I just need to know, what is his career path? Because I mean, if you want to, there are specific universities you want to go to, if you want to do a PhD in that field, or you really want to get into the research aspect, or if you're just trying to polish your skills, round off your learning so that you can go attack that problem. Maybe you want to get into the medical field or into the marketing side, or retail, or IoT, or there are so many different application areas. So if I just want to see what his interest is in this particular field, and then I can guide him. There are many universities now which offer this, so I don't think it matters that much. If you're getting into a professional path, I would say pick any accredited school that offers AI, machine learning, or AI specialization, and I think you'll do it.
Okay, so I think his interest is in IoT. So
yeah. Then he's probably looking at a career in that area, and there's plenty of things you can do there. I mean, by now there'll be graduate courses and projects he can do in wearables, IoT, IMT, which is Internet of Medical Things. So those things are all happening now. So the best way to do your masters is to get the core courses done, understand your methods, and then specialize with your project. Go do the research, and that'll be a great opening to a career.
Okay, so you mean to take up things like IMT? I mean, he can do projects
that he can do when he gets to a project. Typically, universities don't teach IoT and IMT as separate courses, but he can apply his own interest and learn about that. And when it comes to time to doing a master's thesis or a project, or I forget the name of it. Different universities make you do a significant master's project, and he can take an IMT project. He can take a wearables project. So that gets into whatever he's interested in.
Yeah, thank you so much for your input, sir. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. We'll take up a couple more questions, considering interest of time. Take next question. Challenges faced by AI or ML-based startups and ways to overcome these shortcomings.
Yeah, I think, let me see. Yeah, I think let me try to go to slide number 8 there. I think that'll give you the easiest answer. It'll allow me to just walk through a few points. Yeah, I mean, so if you want to look at startup problems, right, here are some of them. So, part of what you have to worry about is, is there enough data? Are you able to get your hands on it in the right time frame? Is it all in good shape? What are the regulations? Which countries are you going to deploy your solution in? Have you looked at the regulations, certifications, developing trust, cyber security, human issues? Is it properly engineered? These are things you need to look at. I remember recently I met a startup company that was doing something very interesting, but they had not thought about any of these issues ahead of time. Sometimes we fall in love with our own technology and our own way of looking at things, but everything ultimately has to fit into a particular situation. So part of the thing you have to think about is how to adapt, and then think about the risk issues too. It's like, if something fails in your application, lower the amount of damage that it can cause. What can happen. Set realistic expectations so that people know, the benefit of your offering, whether it's a product or a service. What is the exact value of it? How does it fit with privacy and those kind of things? Because healthcare means sensitive data, etc. So there are some issues like this that you need to tackle. One very important one that we haven't talked about very much is ethics, inequality, algorithms, right? Sometimes they are ruthless. Human beings are not ruthless. I mean, we know that if we just follow rationality at all times, then the outcomes need not be what we consider to be fair in society. So, looking at things from an ethical perspective, from the perspective of discrimination, access to technology, is everybody benefiting equally? These are some things that AI cannot do, only human beings can do. So, these are areas I would say startups should pay attention. Everybody should plan for success. Don't keep on fighting to, I know the life of a startup, right? You're trying to get to those first few accounts, but think beyond that. How can I get to a place where if I succeed, what is the next set of my challenges? Plan your way there rather than, getting there in a rush and then not knowing how to tackle it. So I'd say create a roadmap for yourself so that all these issues are looked at. Healthcare is a very promising area, but it's also a difficult area because of these issues. Next question.
Yes, sir. So with that, we'll move on to the next question from Ashish. Can you elaborate some about business model by AI in medical imaging?
Business models. Well, I mean, by business models, are you talking about how to make revenue, money in a sustainable way? Is that the question?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Ash, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things I can think of. I mean, part of the innovation in any business is actually the business model. I'm glad you brought up the business model. You have to think of that. How do you make money is kind of the important point in business, right? Sometimes we as technologists and technical people, we get so caught up in that aspect, we forget that the purpose of business is making money. And I've forgotten it myself many times. So I always have a great technology, but not always a great idea of how to position it in the market. So you have to think about how to position it in the market. The positioning comes down to this. Can you take your product and, for instance, make it so that somebody can upload an image and get your diagnosis for a charge right away? So some way of monetizing that, or either a subscription or a per use kind of model, so that that would be a good revenue model where, if it's possible, you get the input sent to you, and then within a few minutes, whatever, I'm not sure how the algorithm works and how your process works, but within some time period, you can guarantee that they get the information back. So in other words, you can completely change how things are done in the universe by changing the business model, not the technology, the business model. So when right now we think about how to send everything to a central place, with a hard copy, and then the lab there does the test and they give you back the result. Can I change that in some fashion so that without physical documents moving, I can create an API or something like that where the person can use it in a, either they send it to your software as a service and you perform the service, or you create an API so that somebody can add it to their application. So these are all different types of business models that you can use to consistently generate revenue from a technology. The technology, in the old days, there was only one way to deploy it. Put the software on a computer and have the person use the computer, use the software on that computer. Now you have so many more options to deploy things on a cloud, access it remotely, directly, access it remotely through an application, etc., etc. So you can try to package your software or your offering into many different ways and create multiple revenue streams for yourself. I'll be happy to give you further ideas if you contact me.
Yeah, hope that answers my question. We'll take up this last question from chat boxer before we wind up today's session. The last question from Raj. Just wanted to know what are the areas in which AI or ML is used in cancer research, and what are the upcoming areas?
Yeah, once again, I mean, to do that, let me go to the same slide that I looked at before. This slide will tell you pretty much everything you need to know. The cancer research comes in, there's certain kinds of cancers, the drug discovery is full of cancer research things that traditional kind of, biology-based, using chemicals to change the chemistry of the biochemistry of the body and trying to attack cancers that way. And then there's many gene therapies that have arisen in personalized genetics, genetic research, which are also looking at cancers. For instance, this COVID virus, one of the vaccines is what they call mRNA vaccine is actually messing around with our genetics genetically to wake up the immune system to fight COVID. And it's been tremendously successful. And therapies like that are the ones that they plan to use for cancer, so that essentially by changing the genetic program, if you will, of your body, you respond better to even things like cancer. This is all in a preliminary stage right now, but those are some of the techniques that I know about. And again, remember, I'm not a medical guy. I'm a computer science guy, data guy. But, this is what I know from just general reading and exposure to areas where our software is currently trying to get deployed.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So we have one more question left in the chat box. Considering the interest of time, can we take that question also, sir?
No problem.
Yeah, so question from Janani. Can you elaborate about IoT device security issues using deep learning? Which algorithm will get better result while implement real time?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I mean, IoT security is actually very important. It just depends how you're getting the data out of the device and into your analytics. The device is sitting somewhere. But can Janani give me an idea what device she's talking about? And is it I just need to know where the device is and how the data is obtained. Is it from the cloud? Is it gathered in the cloud? Then you get it in one batch, or are you able to are the devices communicating to them directly? Janani?
Janani, could you unmute and go ahead? It's direct. She has mentioned in chat. It's direct.
Oh, direct. Okay. So if it is direct, then yes. I mean, you definitely have to contend with security issues. Now, there are certain protocols that IoT uses. I forget the name of the acronym right now, but there is specific security protocols that you can apply. Janani, please correspond with me, and I'll be able to dig up that reference for you, and you can learn about how to make the security part work. The second question was about deep learning, and for that, I mean, deep learning, there's nothing specific with IoT that goes with it. If you're trying to, what is the use case here? What are you trying to learn from the IoT data, if you can tell me, or put it in the chat so I can get it?
Janani, will you be, it's infrastructure security, she has mentioned in the chat.
Okay, infrastructure security. I'm not fully understanding what the deep learning itself is used for. Are you trying to understand something else from the stream of IoT data you're getting from the devices, or is it just security?
It's from
now you had asked something about, yeah, I think the question you asked was whether we could do this in real time. Part of it is, right, I don't think you can apply the machine learning algorithms in real time. Because it depends which part of it we are talking about. I mean, machine learning, right? The models need to be trained, and then the trained models need to be applied to new data. You can apply the trained model to new data. That will work pretty well even in real time or close to real time. Training the model cannot be done in real time. You have to do that offline. So what I would suggest is train the data periodically. I mean, train the model periodically. So maybe once a day, once in 2 days. Change the model. I mean, get all the new data into the model, train the model, and so you're keeping up with the data, but not in real time. And then use the newly trained model on the real-time data. That will work instantaneously. You can always get good results in applying the data right away, but applying the trained model to the new data. But training a model in real time is not a wise idea. That's the way I would respond.
Thank you, sir. Hope that answers Janani's question. So with that, we are coming to the end of the session. So over to you for any final remarks or comments for the startups or entrepreneurs out here working on AI.
Well, yeah, I mean, by all means, contact me, and I'll be happy to send you a copy of this briefing. a couple of things have changed here, which I would love to share with you. I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to talk to you young people who are out there fighting the entrepreneurial fight. You have my admiration and also my sympathy at some level. This is not for everybody, and so there is a lot of reward and there's a lot of success down there that you can encounter. I would just leave you with one piece of wisdom from the poem called "If" by Rudyard Kipling, who has an India connection. And in the poem called "If," he says, all of us should treat uh, victory and defeat as imposters. So, go out there and do your best, be sincere in your effort. Sometimes you will fail, sometimes you will succeed. If you succeed, build on it. If you fail, learn from it, and you won't go wrong. So, with that, all the best, and do stay in touch.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. It was very informative for all the startups, all the young entrepreneurs out here. And thank you for your time, sharing your knowledge with us this morning. And we'll be posting this video in our YouTube channel. Hope it is fine with you, sir.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Yeah. So some of them are asking your
Thank you so much,
contact address for